I didn't go to the laundromat because I liked it. I went because it stayed open late, because the machines were loud enough to drown out thinking, because nobody expected conversation there. Tuesday nights were mine. Same broken dryer. Same plastic chair with a crack in the armrest. Same coffee from the vending machine that tasted faintly burned no matter which button you pressed. That's where I first noticed her. She folded clothes slower than anyone I'd ever seen. Like she wasn't trying to finish, just pastime. Mid-40s, maybe older. Soft lines around her mouth that looked earned, not neglected. Her hair was pulled back loosely, already slipping free. No muck-up. A wedding ring that caught the fluorescent light every time she reached for another towel. She smiled at me when I held the door. Not a big smile, just enough to acknowledge I existed. "Dryer 3 eats socks," she said, nodding toward my machine. "I figured I replied. I'm down to mismatched pairs anyway." She laughed, quiet, surprised, like she hadn't expected herself to. That was it. That was the beginning. After that, Tuesdays changed shape. I started bringing my own coffee. Real coffee. I didn't offer it the first week. Just set it beside me and watch the steam curl. The next week, she glanced at it and said, "That smells unfair." I pour half into the extra lid I carried, my hands suddenly clumsy. She took it without ceremony, fingers brushing mine for less than a second. Long enough to register. Short enough to pretend it hadn't happened. We never asked each other personal questions. Not really. She told me her name. I told her mine. That felt like enough. Sometimes we talked about detergent brands. Sometimes about nothing. Sometimes we sat in silence, the kind that didn't ask to be filled. I liked that most. I liked watching her fold, the precise way she smoothed fabric, the pause before stacking. I caught myself flicking my eyes toward her hands more than once, and then immediately looking away, embarrassed by my own attention. I was lonely in small, manageable ways back then. I'd type texts and delete them. Pause mid-sentence when my phone buzzed, then realize it wasn't for me. Eat dinner standing up because sitting felt like commitment. I didn't tell her any of that. I didn't need to. She had her own quiet habits. Checking her phone face down, adjusting her ring when she thought no one was watching, staring at the dryer window like it might answer something. One night, she said, "You ever feel like you're early to your own life?" I folded a napkin I brought with my coffee, unfolding and refolding the same crease. "Yeah," I said. "Or late." She nodded. That was all. The attraction didn't arrive loudly. It settled. It waited. I noticed the way she said my name, like she was testing how it fit. She noticed I always left one dryer sheet behind, like an offering. Once, when a machine jammed, she stood too close while we waited for the attendant, and neither of us moved away. The air felt louder than the machines. I told myself it was harmless. Just Tuesdays. Just conversation. Then one night, as she was leaving, she hesitated by the door. Her hand hovered near the handle. She looked back at me, eyes tired but intent. "My husband works late on Tuesdays," she said, not as an explanation. Just a fact. She left before I could answer. I stared at my phone afterward, thumb hovering, no message to reply to. When it finally buzzed, I almost dropped it. A new text. Unknown number. "Did you make it home okay?" I knew exactly who it was. And I knew, suddenly, that something ordinary had already crossed a line I wouldn't be able to redraw. The next Tuesday, I almost didn't go. I stood in my apartment with a basket of clothes already clean, already folded, already excuses. I could have skipped it. I could have pretended the text hadn't rearranged something in me. Instead, I dumped a clean shirt into the hamper just to justify showing up. She was there before me. Same machine. Same slow folding. Different expression. More alert, like she'd been listening for something. When she saw me, she exhaled. Not relief exactly. Recognition. "You're early," she said. "Machine downstairs was free." I lied. She smiled, then immediately looked down at the towel in her hands. Folded it. Unfolded it. Folded it again. I noticed she'd switched her ring to the other hand. We didn't mention the text. That felt important. like naming it would make it heavier than it already was. I sat 2 chairs away this time, close enough to share space, far enough to pretend we weren't. I poured tea from my thermos, chamomile, because I'd run out of coffee, and offered it without asking. She took it with both hands, warming her fingers. "My husband hates this stuff," she said, almost apologetic. "I won't tell him." She huffed softly at that. Not a laugh. Something gentler. We talked about small things. The weather turning. A grocery store opening down the block. How the dryers here never quite finished the job. Then there was a pause. One of those long ones that doesn't feel accidental. "I used to rush everything," she said suddenly. "Fought fast. Walk fast. Talk fast. Like if I slowed down, something bad would catch up." I watched her hands still for the first time since I'd known her. "Did it?" She shrugged. "Marriage did." The word landed heavier than she meant it to. She didn't look at me when she said it. She focused on a single sock, stretching it between her fingers like it might tear. I thought about asking more. I didn't. Instead, I said, "I think I rush because I'm afraid nothing will." She looked up then. Really looked. Her eyes didn't soften. They sharpened, like she was trying to place me in a category she didn't usually allow herself. "You're young," she said, gently, but not dismissively. "I know." There it was. The line. Age, spoken plainly, not flirtatiously. I felt it settle between us. Not a wall, more like a reminder. After that, everything felt riskier. The silence stretched differently. When our knees brushed, neither of us moved. I imagined scenarios. I immediately shut down. Her hand on my arm, her voice saying my name in a different room. The weight of consequences arriving later. I hated myself for how quickly my mind went there. I hated how natural it felt. She finished folding and stood. "Can you help me?" she asked, nodding toward the jam machine. We crouched together, shoulders nearly touching, tugging at the stubborn door. She laughed under her breath when it finally gave, a Rayal laugh this time, surprised and brief. I noticed a faint scar on her wrist, half hidden by her sleeve. "What happened?" I asked, then immediately wished I hadn't. She glanced at it, then back at me. "Burn. Long time ago. I was careless." I nodded like I understood more than I did. Where she stood, she swayed slightly, and without thinking, I steadied her. My hand rested on her elbow. Light. Prupe. It still felt like too much. She didn't pull away. She didn't lean in either. Just stayed. Her skin was warm through the thin fabric of her sweater. She smelled like clean laundry and something herbal. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For the tea," I replied, even though we both knew what she meant. When she left that night, she paused again at the door. This time, she looked back fully. "You don't have to come every Tuesday," she said. "I know." Another pause. Then she smiled, not small this time. "Not safe." "I'm glad you do," she said. After she left, I sat alone with the empty cup between my hands, replaying the way her elbow had fit under my palm. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me and didn't immediately look away. The following Tuesday, she didn't come. I waited longer than I meant to. Switched machines, even though mine was working. Sat again. The chair across from me stayed empty. Her dryer light never flicked on. I told myself it was nothing. Routines break. People have lives. Still, when my phone buzzed halfway through the cycle, my chest tightened before my brain caught up. No message from her. Instead, the attendant asked if I was done with machine 3. I nodded too quickly. The week after that, she showed up late. Different jacket. Hair pinned back tighter than usual. She didn't sit right away. Stood near the machines, scanning the room like she was checking exits. When she finally noticed me, she smiled, but it didn't land. "Hey," I said. "Hey." She hesitated. "I can't stay long." Something in me braced. "Okay." We stood instead of sitting. That felt intentional. Like if we stayed upright, nothing could settle. She loaded her clothes fast. No smoothing. No pauses. Her ring was back on her left hand. I noticed because she kept touching it, turning it once, then stopping herself. Almost didn't come, she said, eyes still on the machine. Me too, I said, though it wasn't true. Better in a glance. Brief. Searching. Then gone. A woman walked in, late 20s, earbuds in, and nodded at me like we knew each other. I realized with a dull jolt that I'd become part of the scenery here, that someone else could notice us and build a story that didn't belong to either of us. She noticed it too. Her shoulders tightened. This was a bad idea, she said, not looking at me. My mouth opened. Closed. Which part? She pressed her lips together. All of it. The machine clanged to life. Loud. Final. We stood there, the space between us suddenly full. Not with attraction. With risk. With questions neither of us was equipped to answer. I don't know what you want, she said quietly, and I don't trust myself to guess. I folded my hands together so they wouldn't reach for her. I don't either. That seemed to soften something. Or maybe it just made the silence kinder. Her phone buzzed. She checked it immediately this time. Her face shifted. Not panic, but responsibility. She typed a reply with quick, practiced thumbs. He's home early, she said. Explanation. Boundary. Okay, I said again. It was becoming my word for things I didn't know how to hold. She pulled a sock from a dryer, then another. Dropped one. I picked it up and handed it back. Our fingers brushed. This time, she flinched, not away, just still, like she was deciding whether to let herself feel it. She looked up at me. Close. Too close. Her eyes searched my face, maybe for reassurance. Maybe for permission. I think about you, she said. Not often. Not always. Just there. My heart thudded once. Hard. I think about you too, I said, because not saying it felt worse. For a second, neither of us moved. The machines hummed. Someone laughed outside. Her gaze dropped my mouth. Mine followed the line of her jaw, the place just below her ear. She leaned in, not enough, just close enough that I could feel her breath shift. Then she stopped. I can't, she whispered. Not as rejection, as restraint. I nodded, even as my body protested the distance returning. She stepped back, gathered her clothes, and headed for the door. At the threshold, she paused, hand hovering like it had that first night. I don't regret knowing you, she said. Then she was gone. I stood there long after the dryer stopped, replaying the almost. The space where something could have happened, and didn't. After that, she stopped coming on Tuesdays. Not abruptly, not dramatically, just gradually. A missed week, then another. I told myself it was relief. Space. A correction. But my body didn't believe me. I still found myself checking the door every time it opened, still poured 2 cups out of habit, still sat in the chair across from where she used to fold. The laundromat went back to being just a place. 2 weeks later, I ran into her outside instead. Early evening, the light already thinning. I was carrying groceries up the block when I saw her sitting on the low concrete bench near the pharmacy, a paper bag at her feet. She looked smaller there, folded inward. Not rushed, just tired. I almost kept walking. She noticed me anyway. Her face changed the way it always did. Surprise first, then something softer she tried to hide. Hey, she said. Hey. We stood there, unsure of the rules now that we weren't surrounded by machines and exits. The bench suddenly felt like an invitation neither of us had extended. She gestured to it. You can sit, if you want. I set the groceries down beside me. Left space between us. Too much space. She noticed. Shifted closer just an inch. Silence settled. Not the comfortable kind from before. This one had edges. I heard you laughing last week, she said suddenly. I frowned. Where? The laundromat. I drove by. She looked straight ahead. You were talking to someone. A girl, I think. Oh, it was an accusation. It was something worse. Vulnerability slipping out before she could stop it. She dropped her detergent, I said. We laughed because the cap rolled under a machine and neither of us could reach it. She nodded, like she'd already decided what it meant anyway. Her hands were folded tight in her lap, knuckles pale. I don't like who I become around you, she said quietly. The words landed without force. Just wait. Because of me? I asked. Because of myself. A pause. I start imagining things I shouldn't. I measure time by whether I'll see you. I notice when I don't. I swallowed. The bench felt suddenly too public, even though no one was looking. I didn't mean to. I started, then stopped. Meant to what? Exist? She turned to me then. Fully. Her eyes were steady, but there was something raw underneath, like she'd peeled back a layer and forgotten how to put on again. I'm married, she said. Not defensive, just factual. And I'm lonely in a way I don't know how to explain without sounding ungrateful. I nodded slowly. I don't think loneliness cares about gratitude. That almost made her smile. Almost. I'm older than you, she went on. I have a life you don't see. Responsibilities. A son who thinks I'm steadier than I feel. That one caught. I hadn't known about the son. I didn't ask questions. Just let it settle. Let the risk sharpen. I don't want to be a mistake, she said. You're not, I said immediately. Too fast. Too sure. She watched me for a long second. That's a dangerous thing to promise. The streetlight flickered on above us. She reached up without thinking and brushed a moth away from her shoulder. I noticed how her hand lingered there afterward, like she was grounding herself. I think about you more than I should, I admitted. It felt like stepping onto thin ice. Not in a dramatic way, just in the background, like a song I can't turn off. Her breath hitched. Just once. I replay things, she said. Your hand on my elbow. The way you listen like I'm not wasting your time. I shifted closer. Not touching. Close enough to feel the heat from her arm. If I asked you to stop seeing me, she said, would you? The question sat between us, fragile and sharp. I thought about Tuesdays. About the empty chair. About how stopping hadn't stopped anything at all. Yes, I said, after a moment. Because honesty mattered more than hope. But I don't think it would fix what you're afraid of. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were damp but steady. What do you want from me? She asked. There it was. The question neither of us had named until now. Not loud. Not desperate. Just exposed. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Felt the pull of leaning in, of answering with my body instead of words, of choosing the irreversible. She leaned closer too. Close enough that I could see the faint crease between her brows. Close enough that the world narrowed to breath and space, and a thing neither of us was saying. The moment stretched, and neither of us knew which answer would break us more. She stopped answering my messages. Not abruptly, not with a goodbye, just with silence that stretched longer than it should have. A red receipt that never appeared. A typing bubble that didn't exist, but I imagined anyway. I told myself it was what she'd asked for. Space, control, the illusion of stability snapping back into place. So I stopped going on Tuesdays. The first week felt deliberate, responsible, like I was choosing restraint instead of waiting to be denied. The second week felt hollow. By the third, I realized how much of my week had been built around the possibility of her. I changed routines, did laundry on Sundays, bought coffee instead of making it, sat at home in the evenings with the TV on mute, scrolling through my phone like something might surface if I stared long enough. Nothing did. Then one afternoon, I ran into her son. I didn't know it was him at first. Just a kid lingering near the building, backpack slung low, kicking at gravel with the kind of boredom that comes from waiting on adults. He looked up when I unlocked the gate. You live upstairs, right? He asked. Yeah. He nodded, like he'd confirmed a theory. My mom's your landlord. That landed softly, then spread. She mentioned you, he added casually. Said you're quiet. I almost laughed. Almost asked what else she'd said. Instead, I nodded. She's late, he said, checking his phone. Again. Something in his tone, resigned, practiced, shifted the story I'd been telling myself. This wasn't just a marriage. This was a life stretched thin in places I hadn't been allowed to see. She'll be here, I said, and surprised myself by how certain I sounded. He shrugged and went back to kicking stones. She arrived 10 minutes later. Pulled up too fast. Got out of the car, already apologizing. Her eyes flicked to me before she caught herself. Hey, she said. It sounded cautious, measured. Hey. Her son waved and went inside without waiting. The door closed behind him. The air between us changed instantly. Less guarded, more fragile. I didn't know you had a kid, I said. I didn't tell you, she replied. Not defensive, just honest. We stood there, neither of us stepping closer. The space felt intentional now. Earned. I should have, she added. But I didn't know how to explain everything. I nodded. You don't owe me an explanation. She looked at me then. Really looked. That's the problem. You make it feel like I don't owe anyone anything. And that's not true. There it was. Guilt, finally spoken. I've been pulling back, she said unnecessarily. I thought if I stopped answering, it would fade. Did it? I asked. She shook her head once. It just got louder. I wanted to reach for her. Didn't. Wanted to ask if she missed me. Didn't. Wanted to say her name, like it could anchor us. Didn't. My marriage isn't good, she said. But it isn't cruel either. It's just quiet in a way that makes noise elsewhere. I understood that more than I wanted to. I can't be someone's almost, she went on. And I can't let you be mine. I swallowed. Then what are we doing right now? She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back. Just one step. Enough to redraw the line. I'm going to ask you for something unfair, she said. And I won't blame you if you don't. I waited. Please don't come by for a while, she said. Not Tuesdays. Not accidentally. Let me see what's left when I stop leaning. The word landed heavy. Leaning. As if we'd both been holding each other up without admitting it. Okay, I said, because anything else felt like pressure. She nodded, relief and grief crossing her face at the same time. Then she turned and went inside. That night, I typed a message I didn't send. I don't regret you. Deleted. If you ever need, deleted. I'm still here. Deleted. I stared at the blank screen until it dimmed on its own. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next Tuesday, I passed the laundromat on my way home. The chair across from mine was empty. And for the first time, I didn't go in that I didn't plan to see her again. That's what I told myself, anyway. Plans are comforting when you don't intend to keep them. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, gray and undecided. I was carrying a bag of groceries up the stairs when I heard her door open downstairs. Not the full swing, just enough to slide something out. A box. Cardboard, taped badly, like it had been reopened too many times. She didn't notice me at first. She was barefoot, standing on the threshold of her own place like she wasn't sure she belonged fully inside it. Hair loose. Sweater sleeves pushed up. No ring. I stopped halfway up the stairs. She looked up, startled, then visibly steadied herself. Oh, she said. E. We stood there, the space between us now vertical instead of horizontal, measured in steps in time. I was returning this, she said, lifting the box. It's yours. You left it when you moved in. I forgot. I recognized it immediately. Old notebooks. A charger that didn't work anymore. Things I hadn't needed badly enough to remember. I didn't even know it was missing, I said. She nodded. I figured. That felt like a small, sad truth about both of us. She held the box out. I took it. Our fingers brushed. Not accidental, not lingering. Just contact. Enough to confirm we were still real. I meant what I said, she added, quickly, like she didn't want to lose her nerve. About needing space. I know, and I don't regret asking. I know that too. Silence followed. Not strained. Just open. Like we'd finally stopped pretending this was casual. I've been doing better, she said. At home, I mean. I search her face for signs. Relief, resignation, something triumphant. Found none. That's good, I said, and meant it. She nodded, then looked past me at nothing in particular. But I miss you. There it was. Quiet. Undressed of expectation. I didn't answer right away. Let the words land without grabbing them. I miss you too, I said finally. But I don't want to be the thing you use to survive something else. She exhaled slow. I know. That's why I asked you to disappear. And did it work? She smiled faintly. Not the way I hoped. We both laughed then. Soft, brief, like acknowledging a shared miscalculation. I keep thinking, she said, if I had met you at a different time, I know. I interrupted gently. I do that too. She looked at me, grateful for the interruption, for not letting the sentence finish. I don't want to cross a line, she said. I just didn't want to pretend you didn't matter. I shifted the box to one arm. With the other, I gestured toward the stoop. Can I sit? She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. We sat side by side, close enough that our knees nearly touched. The late afternoon light caught the dust in the air, made everything softer than it deserved to be. I think about you when things get quiet, she said. Not when I'm unhappy. When I'm calm. That scares me. It scares me too, I admitted, because it feels sustainable. She smiled at that. Sighed. Understanding. I don't want to ask you to wait for me, she said. Or to hope. I'm not, I said. I'm just here. She turned then, fully. Her hand rested on the step between us, palm up. An offering. A question. I placed my hand in hers. Just that. No pulling. No leaning in. Our fingers curled naturally, like they'd done this before. We stayed like that for a long moment, breathing, listening to a car pass. Someone laughing down the block. This has to be enough, she said quietly. I squeezed her hand once. It is. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Not collapsing, just resting. I felt the weight of her trust and the cost of it. After a minute, she straightened. Let go. Stood. Thank you, she said. Not for anything specific. For everything unchosen. Yeah, I said. Thank you too. She smiled then, small, real. The kind that doesn't promise anything. She went back inside, closed the door gently. I carried the box upstairs and set it by the door unopened. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel paused. Just finished enough to move forward. Time doesn't announce when it's done breaking you. It just moves on. Weeks passed, then months. The laundromat stopped meaning anything at all. The broken dryer got replaced. Someone repainted the walls a color that tried too hard to feel cheerful. I started doing laundry at home. Early mornings, black coffee instead of tea, the radio low. At 8:47 a.m., almost every day, I left for work. That time stuck for no reason I could explain. We didn't speak for a while after that Sunday. Not out of discipline, not out of punishment. Just life finding a new rhythm and insisting we follow it. I dated. Casually. She stayed married. Intentionally. And somehow, that wasn't the end. It was a Thursday when she texted again. Months later. No apology. No explanation. Do you still take your coffee black? I stared at the screen longer than necessary. Yeah. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, I'm at the bench. If you're nearby. The same bench. Outside the pharmacy. The concrete still chipped at the corner. Still uncomfortable if you sat too long. I went. She looked different. Not freer, not younger. Just steadier. Hair shorter. Lines softer because they weren't fighting anything anymore. She smiled when she saw me. No hesitation this time. I left, she said, as if telling me she'd switched detergent brands. I didn't ask when, or why, or how messy it was. I know, I said, because I did. Somehow, we talked slowly, carefully, about practical things. Her son adjusting, me moving units. The way mornings felt quieter now, not empty, just manageable. No dramatics, no catching up on pain. At one point she said, I didn't leave for you. I know, I said again. That mattered more than anything else she could have said. After that, we didn't rush into anything that looked like a story. We didn't rename the past or pretend it had been fate instead of timing and restraint and a lot of fear. We started small. Teaonsundais. Her place this time. The kettle whistling too loudly. Me teasing her about oversteeping. Her rolling her eyes and still doing it anyway. Sometimes I stayed late. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes she reached for my hand first. Sometimes I did. No escorequeping. The first time we kissed wasn't fireworks. It was confirmation, like checking the ground before stepping fully onto it. Life didn't magically soften. Bill still came. Her son still tested boundaries. I still had days where loneliness showed up out of habit, even when I wasn't alone anymore. But things felt earned. One morning, I caught her watching me pour coffee. "What?" I asked. She shook her head, smiled. "Nothing. You still leave a little in the pot." "For later," I said. She nodded like that meant something bigger. At 8:47 a.m., she started walking me to the door. Not every day, just most. We didn't talk about the laundromat, or the almost kiss, or the version of us that could have broken something important if we'd pushed harder back then. But sometimes, when the house was quiet, she'd hand me tea, chamomile, and I'd take it without comment. And sometimes I'd notice her folding laundry slowly, deliberately, like time was finally on her side. One night, months into whatever this was, she leaned her head against my shoulder and said, "I'm glad we waited." I didn't answer right away. Then, me too, because waiting hadn't been about denial. It had been about becoming people who could actually hold what we felt without dropping it. There was no proposal, no dramatic promise, just two people choosing each other in ways that didn't require witnesses. Sometimes love doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it shows up after everything loud has already failed and stays because nothing is asking it to prove itself. And every once in a while, when I leave she squeezes my hand and says, "Don't forget your coffee." I never do.